Hey guys, I am not much into long videos, but I have more or less 6 hours plus of footage for this. Let's see then how I went from this to this and then totally changed my mind and did this. But before we do that though, subscribe to the channel. It is a very small thing to you, but it means a lot to me. And of course it helps the channel develop and it gives me fuel for the next projects. Thanks a lot. Getting back to the model. The miniature presented here is the OG metal Corbulo, a spectacular model, very rich in detail and in painting opportunity. Originally the model had a white undercoat and a base that I used with him. In retrospect, the white undercoat would have made a lot more sense, but I stripped him down and gave him a black base with the airbrush, which unfortunately is very stupid on metal models, but this would be a topic for a totally different video. Then of course I gave him the usual black coat with Vallejo black. All pretty smooth so far. My plan was to take care of the Chainsword first, and then move on to the rest. So I did a few shades of grey, and sprayed them on, with a low pressure from the airbrush, to give it all a nice blending feel, the one you can only get when you use the airbrush. Afterwards, I took out all of the masking tapes I had and I started looking for the best one. And here comes a really important word of advice. Prime your metal models with spray cans, and not with the airbrush. Unfortunately, I learned that the hard way. After I took the masking tape off, the paint went off with it as well. So I had to redo all of the previous steps. Apparently water-based paints don't stick to metal models as a primer. They work perfectly fine with plastic and resin models though. So after redoing all of the previous steps, I went in with a very thick varnish layer on the whole model of course, and I waited some time for it to dry. Patience is my biggest opponent, and this project had me fighting it on every step. When the model was dry, I used a softer masking tape and sprayed on some white ink. Then it was a vibrant yellow ink, followed up with a mix of red and yellow inks for the shadows. It wasn't super straight on the Chainsword, but it was okay for me. The next thing was painting all over the elements that were supposed to be black with a black paint again, so it was once again Vallejo black. I printed some reference pictures and kept them on my desk at all time. This is very helpful for me. Very often I lose track which elements should be what color, and this way I don't have to constantly go to my laptop again. The pictures are there for me. I wanted this model to be a testing ground for a new way of painting. A new way of blending, to be 100% accurate here. And I wanted to use Flame On Miniatures technique here. Check him out, he's a master painter. The link to his channel will be in the video description. So all of the highlight areas got a white undercoat, and then I moved on to painting them with Wild Rider Red. The next step was painting the rest of the power armor with Mephiston Red. So in the middle of doing that I noticed something. And I'm really sorry for saying that, or maybe I'm not sorry for saying that, but Mephiston Red is very shit. It is a totally dark red paint. So I moved to, and sorry I have to check the name of it, to Pro Acryl Bold Pyrrole Red. A much more vibrant color. The last paint was supposed to be Wordbearer's Red for all of the shadow areas. After all of that was done, I started the blending process. So what I did here is I prepared middle tones from all of the previous used paints and started painting them very gently on all of the connecting points. As it turned out, this went surprisingly well. For future reference I will stick to this method and keep testing it more. The model also got some edge highlights with orange paint and some black lining. All of the winged elements got a bright blue paint layer. The backpack and the thingy that he has on his hand, the medical thing, I don't really know what it is, got a light grey paint. Afterwards, it was just adding white paint to the blue one that I already had on my palette and layering some highlights, of course. Unfortunately, I was a bit sloppy at this point and I was changing my mind all of the time on what I should do with the model. No particular plan, just going on with what I thought would be Just going on with what I thought would be Just going on with what I thought would be the best plan at that point. Thank you. The model didn't look bad, but I just had a gut feeling that I can do better, a lot better. This was especially visible after I took it apart. There were places that had absolutely no paint on it, which could result in whole layers falling off after some time. I knew that I had to strip him and redo the whole process again. And I am not going to show you the stripping process. It is not as sexy as it sounds. But I found a new base for him, a new backpack, because I drilled through the previous one. I pinned and glued him to the base, without the backpack this time, and primed him again. And once again guys, use a spray can for the metal models. The chemicals in the spray cans, and I'm not a chemist so I will not speak about this, but it makes it a lot sturdier for the metal miniatures. And the paint doesn't fall off. After that was done, I zenithaled the whole model with a grey ink and then with a white one. This time I intended to spray the armor with the airbrush, the whole armor. The brush technique was fine, but I didn't intend to take too much time. The easy ride to victory then. After the zenithals were there, I sprayed some Wild Rider Red for the highlights, followed up by some Mephiston Red for the rest of the armor. And I know that I said that Mephiston Red is a shit paint, but I wanted to give it another go. The approach here was the same as previously, but this time I didn't want to do any blends. Therefore, the airbrush. Already I started noticing some paint falling off, but I pressed on. Some deep violet ink for the biggest shadows sprayed with the airbrush on the Mephiston Red, and some cadmium yellow for the biggest highlights. And guys, if you can hear a relatively strange noise in the background, this is the mopping robot that's doing all of the work for me on the floors. So, and this is what we got on the model. I sprayed all of the areas that had some paint falling off can, and went in to paint all of the details black. That will have different colors in the future. I really wanted to be done with the armor at this point, so I did some black lining and some yellow edge highlights. So I took some silly putty and started praying to the almighty Emperor. Please let this be a very gentle layer that will not take the paint off after I take it. I think many of you can relate to the stress I had here. I covered the model with the silly putty to not ruin the previously made job on the armor, and started doing the Chainsword. Pro Acryl Blue Black for the base and Thousand Suns Blue for the highlights. This time I diluted the paint more than previously and sprayed with less pressure to make a gradual change in color. After all this was done, I came back to the masking tape again. Some white ink on the Chainsword, followed up by some yellow one, and a fluorescent orange for the shadows. And after praying to the Emperor and the Undesire, I started taking off the silly putty. And the model lived. Thank you to the almighty cock of the Emperor. May you be blessed with less stupid sons in the future than Lorgar. Alright, so I went for the wings again. This time I used Thousand Suns Blue as the base paint, as I already had it on my wet palette. Afterwards, I started adding some ivory paint to the Thousand Suns Blue and building up gradual highlights. Then I went for the face, the usual approach. Pugman's Glow as the base paint, Cadian Flesh Tone, then Kislev Flesh, and this time some Vampiric Flesh for the biggest highlights. This is an AK paint. He seemed a bit strange at this point for me, so I had to do the hair to see if the face will make some sense in the future. Unfortunately, I made him a dyed redhead, because I use a bright red paint for the base, instead of a light brown one. Lesson learned here. All seemed fine at this point and I was totally relieved that this will not be a total disaster. And guys, let me leave you with the painting process and a few minutes of music. I think I have talked too much at this point. If you want to see the finished model, then skip to this point of the video. Alright guys, thanks a lot for watching this long, but let's see the finished model. Brother Corbulo took me on a wild trip. The type of trip where you fall down a lot, but then you have to get up and keep on moving. At the end, I think he came out pretty fine. For a 16-hour plus model. I could have saved a lot of time with him if I had a proper plan from the beginning. The biggest mistake here was not using a spray can as a base. Nevertheless, I think the final effect is pretty great, and I am really happy with how he came out. Yet I am also very worried for the person that will be buying him. There could be some paint falling off in the future. Although I think he has 3 layers of varnish. What do you guys think? Leave a comment, I will really appreciate it. And as always, thanks a lot for joining me today. You are all fantastic and I really mean it. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Give a like, give a share, give a comment. I will really appreciate it. Have a look at my Discord channel, it is totally free. The link will be in the video description. I also have a Patreon and Instagram. Links to them will also be in the video description. So take care guys and see you in the next one. And of course don't forget, the Emperor protects.